Hello, I'm Brian Campbell, Vice President of the Western Iowa Synod, and a member of Bethany Lutheran in Emmitsburg. Welcome to this info video to help you prepare for your role as a voting member of the 2019 Western Iowa Synod Assembly. A time for specific questions and detailed information will be scheduled before the first worship of the Assembly. Assembly will be held on May 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 2019 at the Convention Center in Sioux City. I urge you to review the Assembly information posted on the Synod website before coming to Sioux City. The three expressions of the Church are the ELCA Churchwide, the Synod, of which the Western Iowa Synod is part of Region 5, which consists of 12 synods in Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. Western Iowa Synod is made up of 6 conferences: Abundant Fields, Hands of Hope, Living Waters, Rivers of Grace, Seeds of Faith, and Winds of Hope. The third expression is the 130 congregations of the Western Iowa Synod and the 9,062 congregations of the ELCA. We will experience many different things during the Assembly: reports, presentations, debate, fellowship, worship, business, forums, and display tables. This year, the agenda will also include an exciting event that occurs every 6 years, the election of our Synod Bishop. As a voting member of the Synod Assembly, you represent the entire Western Iowa Synod and not a particular congregation. Delegates are instructed by their constituents how to vote. Voting members are called by God and guided by the Holy Spirit in their deliberations. This is important to consider when you address the business items of the agenda. Let's briefly walk through the key activities of the Assembly. Before you arrive at the Assembly, you'll want to either download the Assembly app or print out your own copy of the Assembly packet. Reviewing the agenda information, reports, and resolutions will prepare you to better participate in the activities. As you arrive, the first thing is to pick up your registration packet in the atrium of the Convention Center. This is to verify your attendance and make it possible to determine various requirements for voting, as well as reporting the number of clergy, lay female, lay male, and visitors present. It is important that you arrive early to allow sufficient time for the Credentials Committee to include your registration in their report. This is more important when elections are part of the agenda. You will then be directed to pick up your electronic voting device. Instructions for voting will be given in detail at the first plenary session. Hosts who offer advice and give directions will be available wearing special vests. Remember, if you have any questions, it's important that you ask. Several persons with badges, ABC, Synod Council, or staff are available to find an answer. The Assembly will begin and end with Holy Communion as we call the Holy Spirit to this community of worshipers. Devotions will open each plenary session, and at other times in the agenda there will be Bible study. Please allow me to explain a few important items about the bishop election. First, who is a qualified candidate? Any ordained minister of the Word and Sacrament on the roster of the ELCA is eligible for election. If one name appears on a specific percentage of the ballots, at the end of each ballot, that person is elected. The election process will be conducted by the ELCA Secretary, Chris Berger. The first ballot will be on Friday evening and is a nomination ballot. You have the opportunity to enter the name of any qualified candidate on this ballot. The election committee requests that you have contacted this person to determine that they are willing to be a candidate. They also request that you include the correct spelling of the candidate's name, church they are serving, and phone number that will allow the committee to contact them that evening. If one candidate receives 75% or more of the legal ballots, they are determined to be elected. When a second ballot is needed, it will occur on Saturday morning and will include all the qualified persons who have not withdrawn from consideration or could not be contacted the prior evening. Again, If one candidate receives 75% or more of the ballots, they will be considered elected. Bioinformation submitted by the candidates will be distributed prior to this ballot. If necessary, the third ballot will include the top 7 candidates plus ties from the previous vote. These candidates will have an opportunity to briefly address the Assembly. This vote will take place later on the Saturday agenda and be conducted electronically. The requirement for ballots for election is 2/3 or more. The fourth ballot will also be conducted on Saturday and will include the top 3 candidates plus ties from the previous vote. These candidates will answer specific questions in front of the Assembly before the vote is taken. Requirement for election is 60% or more. The fifth and subsequent ballots, if needed, will again be conducted on Saturday and include the top 2 candidates plus ties from the previous ballot. These candidates will have the opportunity to address the Assembly prior to the vote. A majority of the ballots cast is necessary for election. Each plenary will normally be chaired by the Synod Bishop or Vice President. A parliamentarian will be present. Robert's Rules of Order will be followed. Items of business will be introduced and followed by a presentation of information and discussion before action is taken. It is normal for the budget and guidelines for compensation to appear early in the agenda for action for approval delayed until later. This allows for questions to be submitted in writing, researched, and answered accurately. Questions may be placed in an identified box for a specific amount of time as directed by the chair. Any voting member may address the Assembly at the agenda item being discussed after being recognized by the chair. You are to state your name and congregation as you begin. You must speak from one of the microphones on the floor. Speak from the red microphone if you oppose the item, and from the green microphone if you're in favor of the item. You're allowed 2 minutes to speak, with a green light displayed for 90 seconds and an orange light for 15 seconds, and then a flashing orange light for another 15 seconds. At that time, the red light will be displayed and the microphone turned off. If you wish to speak again, you may return and speak after all others have spoken. All amendments to motions must be presented to the Secretary in writing when introduced to the Assembly. Voting may be by voice, show of hands, or electronic at the discretion of the chair. The chair will announce the items to be considered, the vote will be taken, and the chair will announce the decision. Resolutions must be submitted to the ABC Committee no later than 60 days before the Synod Assembly to appear on the agenda. Voting members wishing to present resolutions at the Assembly for consideration must present them in writing to the Assembly office within 30 minutes of the close of the first plenary session. Resolutions presented at that time will be reviewed by the ABC and likely be reported as information. All resolutions on the agenda will be presented by the ABC with one of 6 recommendations. 1. Report and recommend adoption. 2. Report and recommend adoption with amendment. 3. Report and recommend defeat. 4. Report and offer a substitute resolution. 5. Report and recommend referral to the bishop, appropriate council, board, or committee. Or 6. Report as information. For these, a 2/3 vote of the Assembly is required to consider for action. Elections of various positions on Synod Council, committees, and boards will be conducted. Uncontested positions may be elected by unanimous ballot. Contested positions will be decided by election. Nominations are accepted from the floor. Nominations are accepted from the floor by a voting member submitting a petition for nomination form supported by 10 voting members of the Assembly to the Secretary no later than 30 minutes following the close of the first plenary session of the Synod Assembly. The member presenting the nominations shall secure from the nominee assurance of willingness to serve if elected. The nominee shall have all the requirements of the position. Additional nominations shall include biographical information. Petition for nomination forms are available from the Assembly office. Throughout the agenda, forum hosts will give brief descriptions of their forum topics. Time for attending informational forums and other activities are included in the agenda. Selected guests will be invited to address the Assembly. There will be recognition of special anniversaries of congregations and ordained pastors. Guests and other participants may be recognized. We hope you enjoy your experience as a voting member of the 2019 Western Iowa Synod Assembly, that you grow in faith and gain a new perspective on the role and work of the ELCA, Western Iowa Synod, and your congregation. Come early and make new friends and meet old friends. See you at the Assembly.